Hello everyone, it's Tess, and today's tip is 438, and I'm calling it Weight Loss Discipline. And again, I'm still reading or listening to the Audible of The One Thing by, I always get the name wrong, Gary Keller. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is I actually really like what he was saying in this area. There's a lot of talk out there in being disciplined and in creating habits, and something that was said in this that I'm going to talk about today kind of resonated with me because I can see the pattern in my own life. In order to succeed this time, I've talked about how I have had to, small steps, one thing at a time, make changes in my life. There's a lot of talk out there about creating habits and creating and being disciplined, and it just seems like everything that people talk about, I know it's well worth the work, and I know that there is tasks that need to be done in it, but sometimes I think just the words we use make it overpowering and make it something that we're almost we decide is too hard that we're going to follow up on. So what I found in this book, The One Thing, he was talking about a disciplined mind, and that discipline is the tool that builds a habit. Now, I like this because I really haven't thought of it, or I don't remember hearing it quite this way. And the way he explained it is that discipline and habit go hand in hand. Discipline is the thing that you need in the very beginning to develop the habit. So when we talk about developing a habit, we don't just develop a habit. We have to have discipline to create the habit. Once it becomes a habit, we don't need the discipline anymore. We still want to follow up and make sure we're following our pattern, but we don't need to be as disciplined. That energy can be put towards maybe another task or goal. And maybe that's where I messed up before. I was trying to divide my energy between too many tasks and I couldn't follow through. So, well, hello, Bonnie. Good to see you. So that's what and if there's anyone else on, I just don't see your name, so thank you for being here. So again, this is from the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, and he talks about discipline and habits, and I love the way he kind of explains it in this. He really kind of points out discipline is the tool that helps us build a habit. Once we have a habit, that becomes what Doc V always calls our practices. And when we have our practices, the thing we have to do is just keep doing our practices. And when we do our practices, we can use discipline to direct a new practice or a new habit to come on board. And I really kind of like that approach because I kept thinking about it. I'm like, I have certain habits. I walk every morning. Hi, Mary Lynn, good to see you. And I get up every morning, I meditate, I walk, I listen to affirmations, I journal, I do all those type of things that I have found help me clear my mind and attack each day new and fresh and feeling good. Because for me, I found a key is in feeling good. Ironically, Doc V talked about it today in our live, because yes, for those who don't know, he goes live 365 days a year. But he was talking about that with the thousands and thousands of bariatric patients that he's dealt with, they are not happy. Even if you claim to be happy on the outside, and I'm going to say I claim to be really happy on the outside, I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with myself, and I felt like I let myself down and everyone else around me down. So although I put on a happy face, that's all it was, is a happy face. And I think that this is so true in understanding how to move forward, because Dr. V talked about everybody being unhappy, so I wasn't the exception. I was part of the rule. Now, my exception might have been that my BMI was so high, because being at a BMI of 60, I was facing some very serious health issues and probably a shortened life. But I love the idea that when he talked about, and he always talks about our practices, and our practices basically are our habits. And it always kind of puzzled me that everyone talks about building these habits, and that it's so hard in the beginning, and then you own it and you can keep going with it. Now, the catch with it is, and I was thinking about this based on this article, is the catch with it is once you have used discipline to create a habit, you don't want to let any more than like a day go that you don't practice that habit or that practice, as Doc V says, because what will happen is the farther you get away from the habit, the more that you're going to have to go back to a discipline and be really rigid with yourself and really focused on it to make it a habit again, or to make it a practice again, as Doc B says. And that made a lot more sense to me, because I'm like, if I think about it, my first thing that I did for my morning routine or my morning practices was to get up at 5 a.m. Then after I got that down under, then I started, what am I going to do with that hour that I gained? And it was one thing at a time, because there were a couple of times I tried to chunk on a bunch more things, and I failed every time I did. But the good thing is that I hesitated and said, okay, I tried to take on too much, slow it down. And when I slowed it down, I have a morning routine that I absolutely love. I get up, I pre-pave, and those are statements from Zara Mahoon in the Unlimited book, which are just basically, I get up every morning and say, dear God, thank you for a brand new opportunity to enjoy life. I want my day to unfold with ease. I want good things to come my way. I want to appreciate people, places, and things. And there's a few more sentences to it. But I say that to myself every single morning. I meditate. I'll spend a few minutes and I'll meditate. Sometimes I sit in a chair, sometimes I'll lay in bed, but I meditate. Then I get up and I walk with my mom. I come home and I do some tasks or some chores. I'll, and this is even during the week, because unless it's a day I have to go into the office, I generally have some time where I can maybe do some dishes or do some studying, that type of thing. So what I found is, in building that habit and building that discipline, I use the discipline to create the habits. And once I've got this routine down, by building it through discipline to create the habit, now I have my normal practices every morning. Life starts every day feeling good. I feel good. I at this point in time, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon here, and I've already hit 15,000 steps. But for me, the reason is, now I won't end up at 30,000 by the end of the day today, because I want to do some studying and I want to do some writing, because based on what happened at Sundance, I decided I was going to write a book and tell my story, but sandwiched in between my getting stuck. So I love getting my day started that way, because I start with a win. But it took discipline to create the first habit. And after I got that habit created, I used discipline to create the second habit until I created my routine. I've said before, and I need to really work on what my evening routine is, because basically my evening routine right now is simply a pre-pave before I go to bed, which is, it's time to go to sleep now. I want my body to relax and rejuvenate. And it's a couple more sentences. And again, this is Zara Mahoon. And I'll put a link to her book in my comments along with the one thing. And it has created a pattern in my life, a pattern that makes me feel good, and a pattern that gives me excitement about moving forward. I feel like I've succeeded. When I get up and I wake up between 4 and 5 now, but if I get up and I start my practices and then I start my day, I already start with a win. Well, hi, Odette, it's good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. And I love the way it's changed my life. I will remind you guys, for those who haven't seen it in a while, this was me before surgery. This was me 1 year after post-surgical. I've lost half my BMI. I started at a 60. I've lost half my weight. And my life is better than I could have ever hoped. I'm grateful for Doc V and the group, because he helped me to see that I could reach for more than what I was hoping to get out of this journey. I have shared before that all I was hoping for was 10 years of an active life, because at a BMI of 60, I watched. I couldn't participate because standing, I couldn't stand. I couldn't be actively involved because I just didn't feel good. I was thinking about it yesterday, because I've been posting a lot of pictures of my grandmother's peonies, and there's a little girl next door, and she always wants flowers for me. So I actually went and cut off 2 of each, the pink and the white peonies, and shook them just to make sure there were no ants on them, and gave them to her. And she came back and she said, could I have more? And I'm like, well, absolutely, because there's tons and tons of them. And that would do nothing but make my grandma happy that I was sharing those. Well, a little while later, she runs over and she gives me a painting that she made. And her mom sent me a picture of her looking at the vase of flowers, and she had painted a picture of the flowers that I had given her. And then a little while later, she runs over with a picture of me giving her the flowers. And I thought, had I not taken control of my life, had I not gotten involved in the group that could help me move forward, that would never have happened. I wouldn't have this little girl next door who is telling me she's going to be an artist one day and she won't forget me when she becomes one. And I thought all the things I missed because I wanted to participate, but I couldn't because I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the strength. So if some of these tips, like I love this book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, if some of these tips can help you realize that, he actually talked about Michael Phelps. And I understand this because I tutored learning disabled kids for about 5 years. I had a family member who passed away very young, and I decided that if I did that, if I could help one person have different choices than what he had, then I honored his memory is the reason I did it. And but it was a gift for me. In the end, it was a gift for me. And what I realized is what it made me realize when I worked with these students is that they all have a gift, but their ability to learn was different. So they had to learn different practices. We had to apply a different discipline until they had a new habit so that they could overcome the struggles with reading. And what was interesting is in this book, he talked about Michael Phelps. Well, Michael Phelps was a swimmer here locally in Michigan, so we were all cheering for him. And he pointed out something that I know from my own students, that they're always considered to be people that would not succeed. Well, Michael Phelps, when somebody helped give him the tools to direct his attention, he created amazing habits. And his habits took him to, they said that the number of medals he wanted, that if he was a country, he'd be the 5th highest number of medals in the world. And I may have quoted that wrong, but it was in the book. But it made me realize that it's really in being taught what you can do to create a new life. And that's what happened for me. I was not happy at a BMI of 60. I tried to pretend to be happy to everybody in the world, but I wasn't happy. I didn't feel good about myself, and I couldn't have participated with the little girl next door. Our lives are worth it. It's worth the energy. Discipline is the tool to build the habit. The habit is the thing that gets you going every day because you know you've got to do it. And I find that when I do the habits that I have created for myself, my practices, my life feels really good. It kind of talked about, too, do the right thing, not everything. Do the right thing to keep yourself moving forward. And I agree with that because sometimes I'd get up and I would focus on the wrong thing to start my day right. My practices that I do every morning are the practices that make me feel like I started the day with a win. I walk out the door and I'm like, I don't care what else happens. I've got a win under my belt and I can overcome anything. So that's why I think creating the right thing, the one thing that will help you move forward, is important because it gives you the confidence to be strong in whatever you face during the day. And that's where he talks about use selected discipline to build a powerful habit. And I'm going to add to it that for me, it's not just one powerful habit. Once you use discipline to create a powerful habit, then you can use discipline to create a second, and you can come up with your practices, because I have my practices I do every morning. It says focusing on the right thing allows us to stop focusing on the wrong thing. And I know we've all had that problem in our way. I love thinking about the idea of the beginning of any new habit is just discipline. But we don't have to be, he said that word discipline kind of sets people back sometimes. And we don't have to look at it that we're going to have to be rigidly disciplined the rest of our life. Discipline is just that tool to help you introduce it into your life, and then it becomes habit, and discipline's not necessary because you automatically fall into it. So I liked how he approached that. He also approached the same thing that Robin Sharma wrote the 5 a.m. Club, which is a book Doc V introduced probably a year and a half ago, and that's what got me into getting up at 5 a.m. No, I have not always been an early riser. It has been something that I've developed since COVID. I fought to get up to go to work pre-COVID. It was a habit learned through the materials Doc V shares. And it was Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club. So I took his challenge to get up at 5 a.m. And it's just morphed into something else that's personal to me since then. And I think that's what any of these tools do. They allow you a chance to get started and then personalize it to what fits your life and makes you feel good. again, he says it's not that you have to be a disciplined person every day for the rest of your life. The discipline is the beginning to help you to develop the habit. Once you have the habit, it's routine. It's one of your normal practices. And I don't know if you'll find that comforting, but for me, I found that comforting because I got to a point where I hated that word discipline. Well, okay, if it's just something I got to do in the first 66 days to develop a habit, I'm fine with that. And he kind of talked about, some people are saying 22 days and then it becomes a habit. So whatever works for you, but know that you don't have to be this rigid person. Discipline is important and plays a part in our life, but sometimes I think I've made it more difficult than it needed to be. He says that if you are what you repeat, then achievement isn't an action you take, but a habit you forge into your life. And I like that. So I'll try to repeat that again. If you are what you repeat, then achievement isn't an action you take, but a habit you forge into your life. And I think that's good. And the way you start the forging is by the discipline. And once it becomes a habit, the habits aren't painful. Actually, the habits are comforting. I love getting up in the morning. I love walking. My mom walks with me every morning. I didn't ask her to, because in her senior years, I figured if she doesn't want to walk or if my dad doesn't want to walk, that's up to them. But they always know the door's open if they want. But she has been walking with me for a year now. Yeah, I like the 5 a.m. club, and I read that, and I even tried to get into his materials a little bit, but he is one of those, you'll get tons and tons of emails from him, but his material was really good, and he actually put a scientific approach to things too, like your first 20 minutes, your second 20 minutes, your third 20 minutes, and he's got all these different plans. But what you have to know is that I wanted to I always go at things thinking I want to 100% adapt what they've done. What I've had to learn over the past couple of years is adapt it to where it works for you. Use the discipline to grab the practices to create the routine or the morning practice or evening practices that work for you. Because just because it worked for this person in this book, you might have to tweak just a little bit, and that's okay, because you'll find your natural way. I love my morning walks. I intentionally hit the pavement before the dogs are out for their walks. I love animals and I love dogs, but what I found is there's a sweet spot for me. And it talks about sweet spots in this thing. The sweet spot is if I get out before everybody's awake, I see bunnies. And I love bunnies. I've always loved bunnies. And the bunnies are only out until the dogs come out, because once the dogs come out, they run into hiding. But I have counted as many as 13 in the morning. And that's just kind of fun for me, because it'll be kind of dark, and all of a sudden I'll see these little white cottontails bouncing in front of me. And by the time I come around to come home, I'll be facing the east and I'll see the sun come up. And quite often I'll see a beautiful sunrise. And that actually, it just juices me. It just drives me to be moving forward in different ways, in ways that I never dreamed possible. So I think if you find these things, it will help you to move forward. I want to see if I have any more notes. But I'm going to repeat this one again because it is good. If you are what you repeat, then achievement isn't an action you take, but a habit you forge into. Your life, you don't have to seek out success. Harness selected disciplines and you will have that success. And again, this is the one thing. I will include Zara Mahmood's Unlimited book, because I do that every single day. She's got a Facebook group, and we actually talk about it Monday through Friday. I actually lead a group in there too. But I love these tools and Doc V was the beginning. Doc V was the beginning of all of this for me. He helped me to recognize that I did not feel good about myself. I had terrible self-talk and I had terrible self-worth. He helped me to identify the tools, which were meditation, gratitude journaling, positive, trying to recognize when a thought wasn't good, so that I could get confidence and self-worth. And once I was able to start getting some confidence and self-worth, the other tools presented, like they say, when the student's ready, the teacher presents. And I found a couple of amazing teachers And many of them I now call friends that have helped to guide me to see my life differently. And I'm going to tell you guys, I've watched the posts. Doc V had everybody posting in the month of, we're in June, May, their starting weight, their starting BMIs, where they're at now, what they're struggling with. And my BMI was really high compared to most. I was probably at least one of the top 5 or 10. So what that tells me is that we all have the option. If we truly in our heart of hearts want to make a change, I'm going to tell you it's worth every effort that you put into it, because now it feels better. It feels better to be living this life knowing that all opportunities or all options are unlimited. I am doing things that I never even realized were goals for me. And I'm excited about the future, and I'm hopeful about the future. And before, I was just hopeful to get an experience or two before I had to go home. So I think it's worth a little bit of discipline to create a habit to add to your practices. And I hope you guys find this helpful. My life is so much better now. It was really getting better when I had the surgery and I was down over 100 pounds, but it's next leveled on a regular basis since I've actually actively participated and took the challenges. Doc V has challenged me a couple of times. These lives are 100% because he challenged me. And then when I took the challenge for a 30-day go live, he challenged me not to stop. So here we are today. But I hope you guys have a beautiful day and know it's worth the effort. I was a person at a BMI of 60. I was one that just wanted to get a couple of experiences in before I was called home. I am now knowing that I'm not ready to go, and if the Grim Reaper thinks he's coming for me, he's going to have to have fast feet, because I'm not making it easy. And my hand's out to hand up to anyone who wants to do the same. There's a lot in this world. There's a lot of beautiful in this world. Many people have forgotten that it's beautiful, but if we start showing them what's beautiful in this world, maybe they'll join us. Have a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and thank you.